Hey everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Exposed Scandalous Files of the Elite. I'm your host, Jim Chapman, and we are back with this fifth installment of our Bad Teachers series. And let me tell you, with all of the bad teacher stories that I've told you so far, this one has to rank as one of the wildest stories yet. So we're going to jump right into it, and I'm going to take you to Waynesville, Missouri for this one, and Lackey High School, and give you a little background on a math teacher by the name of Hailey Clifton-Carmack. Now, Hailey was 26 years old at the time of the charges that I'm about to tell you about took place. This was in December of 2023. She was very newly divorced, having filed in August of 2023, with that divorce being finalized just a month later, which I didn't even know that was possible to get a divorce finalized that quick, especially with kids involved. They have 2 daughters, but they must move fast in Missouri because it was like a month after she filed that the divorce was final. I guess nobody contested, but here in Louisiana, you got to wait a year no matter what. Now, her husband, incidentally, is an MMA fighter in the state of Missouri, or her ex-husband now. And Hailey came from a pretty large family. She had 6 other siblings, and she was pretty well liked in Pulaski County, Missouri, a very popular, pretty brunette. And although she was newly divorced in December of 2023, everything seemed to be moving along well for Hailey. And on the outside, it appeared that she was very happy and she was moving on. But that would change real quick. So a confidential witness, who was also the 16-year-old victim's friend in this case, goes to the SRO at that school. And that's Student Resource Officer, for those of you that aren't familiar, at Lackey High School. And that confidential witness reports that the 16-year-old victim is having sex on a regular basis with Hailey Clifton-Carmack. Now, this was in December of 2023. As a matter of fact, December 7th. The SRO then contacts a detective for the Pulaski County Sheriff's Office to investigate. Said detective goes to the school to interview this witness, and he asked how this witness could even know this was going on. And the witness responded by telling the detective that Carmack and the 16-year-old had sex in Carmack's vehicle in the driveway of the witness's house. And even further, the witness said there's no doubt it happened because the victim shortly thereafter texted pictures to the confidential witness of his back, where Hailey Clifton-Carmack allegedly dug her nails into his back as, in the victim's words, she orgasmed. So the witness then said, later on that same day, they overheard Hailey Clifton-Carmack on the phone with the victim saying, "I can send you money, baby." Not sure what the money was in reference to. And quickly, if you're curious as to what the age of consent is in Missouri, because it varies from state to state, which I think is part of the problem personally. Well, 13 and younger, you cannot consent to sex with anyone in the state of Missouri. 14, 15, and 16-year-olds cannot consent to sex with someone who is more than 4 years older or who is 21 and older. 17 and older can consent to sex with anyone 14 or older. So in this case, even had Hailey not been his teacher, he still could not have legally consented to sex with her. She was 26, he was 16. She could be no older than 20 years old for that consent, even if she wasn't a teacher. And why I make note of that is in some states, someone may be the age of consent. Maybe they're 18 years old and they're seniors in high school and they have sex with a teacher. Well, they're 18, but some states, if you are in what's considered a trusted position, like a teacher, you still can't consent. So keep that in mind. So as detectives are interviewing this confidential witness, one of the things they ask is, what is Hailey's reputation among the students in the school? Do people know this is going on? What's the deal? And it's pretty shocking what the witness said. The witness stated that Hailey is very friendly with the students, too friendly, according to that witness, and that Hailey Clifton-Carmack would often dress inappropriately. When the detective asked the witness to describe what inappropriate was to them, the witness stated, quote, that she would wear tight or low-cut shirts that would show off her headlights, i.e. nipples, and very tight leggings that she would intentionally position so she could live up to her nickname among the students. And when the detective asked what that nickname was, get ready for this, the witness replied, camel toe teacher. No shit. The detective then asked the witness to elaborate on what they meant when they described Hailey as too friendly. And the witness said that Carmack would openly discuss her personal life with the students and even went as far as to mention to the students that she had gotten in trouble with the school administration because she was so open with the students. And incidentally, when the detective spoke to the school administration about this and asked them if they had ever had conversations with Carmack, they confirmed it. They confirmed they did, in fact, talk to her about both the way she dressed and her apparent closeness with students and how she was having inappropriate conversation like what I just described. They went on to say that the only people privy to that conversation were the principal, the superintendent, and Hailey Carmack herself. So obviously that proved to the detective that she had to be having these conversations with the students. Otherwise, how would that witness know that she, in fact, did get called to the carpet, so to speak, for her closeness with the students? Which, that's an issue for the school now, in my opinion. And I would imagine a lawsuit is coming at some point if one has not already come regarding that, because if they had to call her in for these issues and then something like this happened, they're complicit in that in some respect. So the witness also stated that the victim told the witness that Carmack had got a divorce because all her husband wanted to do was, quote, butt stuff, unquote, with her. Now, before we go any further, what is Hailey Clifton-Carmack doing here, do you think? By having those conversations with particular students, dressing where she could show off her crotch and all that. It is classic grooming. She is testing these students here. She wants to see who talks and who doesn't talk, who seems shocked by that and who seems like they're playing into it. She's wanting to see how certain students respond to it because it will allow her to see how far she can take it. So on December 8th of 2023, the detective goes back to Lackey High School. This is the next day to speak with Hailey Clifton-Carmack and get her side of the story. And she, not surprisingly, denies everything. Basically says the witness is full of shit. The detective asked her if she would surrender her phone so they can analyze it, and she willingly does that. She appeared very calm, and the detective even noted in his report that, quote, she didn't have the normal behavior of someone facing allegations like this. Basically, in my opinion, he's saying she was almost too calm. I mean, think about it, folks. If that were you and a detective calls you into an office and you're completely innocent and they ask you if you've been fucking a student, you would probably lose your mind, right? Freak out. This girl is as calm as a cucumber, according to the affidavit. So a few days later, on December 13th of 2023, that detective gets the proper search warrant signed so he could review the text and all that in her phone and the calls, etc. And he phones Carmack to get that passcode. But there's a problem. Hailey, in the meantime, has lawyered up. And she tells the officer that upon her attorney's advice, she's not going to supply her passcode. So the detective, he sends the phone off to the FBI or whatever experts they have that are good at unlocking locked phones. And on December 22nd, he gets that phone back along with a PDF file download of all the text she had attempted to delete. But remember this, they're never fully deleted, folks. And those texts left no doubt that Hailey and this student were 100% for sure having sex. There were also photos sent to that 16-year-old that the detective described showed Hailey Clifton-Carmack nearly nude. So while the detective is making plans to get everything together and to go arrest Hailey, on December 23rd of 2023, he gets a call from another confidential witness. We'll call them confidential witness number 2. And that witness says, hey, if you're going to go arrest Hailey Carmack, you better do it fast. She is leaving town to go visit family for Christmas and is going to stop by this 16-year-old student's house before heading out of town. So police, they make plans to head that way, see if they can head her off, but they're too late and she manages to get out of town. They just never see anyone at this student's house as they're surveilling it, and they can't find her anymore. So here's where it gets really bizarre. On January 3rd of 2024, the detective interviews that confidential witness number 2 at the station. And according to the affidavit, and I'm going to quote here, on January 3rd of 2024, I met with confidential witness number 2 in a recorded interview room. The following is a synopsis of the interview. Confidential witness number 2 advised me she had been over to the confidential victim's residence and had spoken with his father. According to confidential witness number 2, the confidential victim's father knew of the sexual relationship between Hailey and the victim. Let me say that again. The father knew of the sexual relationship between Hailey and the victim, as both had told him of their sexual relationship. The victim's father relayed to confidential witness number 2 that Hailey and the victim have been in a sexual relationship and have used students as lookouts while they had sex during school in the teacher's classroom, and that Hailey had in fact been over to the residence before she left Missouri to go to Texas. When confidential witness number 2 advised the father that they were going to come forward with the information to the police, he responded by telling her that they are going to do it behind my back anyway, so I may as well let it happen. There's some common fucking sense for you, right? That's, you hear people say sometimes when their kids are, and I'm not saying I condone this, but maybe they've got 17-year-old kids and they let them have a beer or something like that when they have friends over. And the parents' excuse for that is, if they're going to drink anyway, I'd rather they just drink here. And I'm not judging one way or the other. I personally didn't choose to do that with my kids, but You do you and what you think is right in your parenting. That being said, it's totally different than letting a teacher fuck a student because, quote unquote, they're going to do it anyway. The second he found out about that, the father should have turned her in. But we'll get back to that. Confidential witness number 2 also said the father advised that he would lie for his son if he had to. After reading this information, I went out and spoke to the father, who did acknowledge that Hailey had been over to their residence before leaving to go to Texas. Yep, you heard that right. The father was completely aware all this was taking place, and she indeed did go over there before leaving to go visit family in Texas. So an interesting turn of events. The father gets arrested and charged with child neglect for allowing this to go on and not reporting it. And in the meantime, police, they're searching for Carmack. She still ain't back in Missouri. As a matter of fact, she's in Texas. And in short order, just a couple of days after they spoke to the victim's father, as a matter of fact, on January 5th, Texas police arrest Carmack in Garden Ridge, Texas, and she is quickly extradited back to Missouri, where she is charged with endangering the welfare of a child, statutory rape, second-degree sexual contact with a student, and child molestation in the 4th degree. Some pretty serious charges. And it's interesting to note that Hailey Carmack never had plans on returning to Missouri. As a matter of fact, she had completely moved out of her apartment and was going to remain in Texas, which right there gives you a clear-cut sign of her guilt. She was basically on the run. So Hailey Clifton-Carmack, she bonds out of jail. And she gets remanded to house arrest, complete with that ankle monitor, pending her trial after she pleaded not guilty at her arraignment. And that's typical. Any arraignment in the history of arraignments, people are going to plead not guilty. They have nothing to lose. You go in there, you plead guilty, you're sentenced right away. So take that with a grain of salt, but that's what she pleaded to. Now, before I tell you the rest of the case, let's talk about what evidence the DA had against Hailey Clifton-Carmack. You got 2 witnesses. You have the text message evidence, including pictures that Carmack was sending to this 16-year-old. You have the father, who admitted to being aware of the relationship. And you have the fact that upon knowing that she was on the radar for the relationship with this 16-year-old, Hailey Clifton-Carmack flees the state and goes on the run with the intent you can derive of never returning. And with all that, what do you think the state does? They offer a fucking plea deal. Why? This is the whole issue right here. There is no deal. There is no reason to deal. You could not have better evidence of this, short of the jury actually seeing her fucking the student. Why in the hell would you offer a deal? You've got 2 confidential witnesses and all this other stuff, including the phone, including the father. Yet she gets a deal. So what does Hailey do with this information? Well, she does what you think she would do. She takes the deal. And on September 6th of 2023, she pleaded guilty to felony sexual assault, the statutory rape charge, the endangering charge, the molestation charge, all dropped to that one single count. Her sentence, 4 years in prison. Sounds steep, right? But because, and hold on to your pants here, because she is a first-time offender, the judge allowed her to be eligible for a sex offender assessment program. And if she completes the program, the judge could grant her probation in as little as 120 days. Just 4 months into her sentence, which would mean if she passes the program, and according to the DA, only 50% of the people pass is what they said. I don't want to hear that shit. If she passes the program, she will be released sometime this month, January of 2025. Unfucking believable. And what about that father that knew all this was going on, that they arrested for child endangerment? Well, while they were working on the Carmack case, the prosecution, they figured they may need this father's testimony. They weren't sure if Hailey was going to take the deal, so they had to lock him up in their mind. I don't think they needed him. I think they had all the freaking evidence they needed without him, but I'm not them. So the district attorney approaches him with a deal, and he agrees to that deal. And part of that plea agreement was, if we need you to testify, you agree to do that. He agrees, and they agree to delay his case until after Carmack was sentenced. So on November 7th of 2024, just 2 months ago, he was also sentenced after taking that plea deal, which dropped his charge down to 1 count of peace disturbance. And he was sentenced to 2 years probation. That's it. So there you have it. Today, I wanted to bring you a case of why this continues to go on. You see these light ass sentences these people are getting? That's the crazy case of Hailey Clifton-Carmack. Now, perception. Let's talk about this for a second. As I was researching this story, I came across a TikTok from when Hailey Clifton-Carmack was sentenced. And the comments were so mixed. I'm going to read you some of the comments that were made under that original post. One comment said, flip the roles and the male teacher would be behind bars for life or at least 15 years. And hey, I don't know about that, but I can tell you if it were a male, there is a huge discrepancy in these sentences between males and females. And we all know why that is. The perception that a female, 26 years old in Hailey Clifton-Carmack's case, very pretty, gorgeous, really. And a 16-year-old student, is it really rape? Yeah, it's really fucking rape. But they don't look at it like that. There's a perception difference there between males and females. Second comment, women can be predators too. Watch your sons just as closely as your daughters. I know men that are all messed up in the head from hooking up with a teacher or older neighbor's wife as they were young teens at the time. They think it's cool to have that attention, but as they get older and become parents, they start to realize that they were victimized and that it wasn't acceptable, that nobody protected them. The trauma is still there, even if they don't realize it at the time. There's all kinds of peer pressure to get experienced with sex, whether these teens are ready for it or not. Young teen boys, especially the handsome ones, are targeted by insane sociopathic women. It's just as evil and wrong as an adult male taking advantage of young teen girls. Predators will groom them, regardless of the gender of the predator. Talk to your kids. Let them know it's still a crime. Look, that's about as smart as you can put it. That's a hell of a comment for a TikTok post. That was really well put. Another comment. This is why pedophiles continue to pedophile. The consequences are non-existent. The children are scarred for life with their childhood stolen, but the government looks away, probably because most of them are pedophiles too. Well, another comment. Consequences are non-existent for females. Double standards. There is a double standard out there. Another comment. Girls and boys at the age of 16 are not innocent. They know what's going on. The kid was feeling like a rock star. Girls at 16, same thing. She is doing what she wants. Far from rape. Moms are not raising young ladies. Those days are gone. I could see if the girl was 13 or younger. Boys at 16, come on, seriously? He is not going to need a shrink. He has bragging rights. Don't come at me with your self-righteousness BS. These parents with their soft parenting and let kids do what they feel has gotten them in this situation. Y'all created this mess. Now deal with it. That person's just, my opinion, is wrong. Another comment. That is normal for first offenses. I've seen folks get less than that. Well, that's the fucking problem. Just because it's normal don't mean it's right. Another comment. That's crazy. If it were a man, it would have been a different sentence. Man or woman needs to be punished. A lot more jail time. Classes isn't going to stop her. I was sexually abused from the age of 5 to 11. It made me feel like I was a mistake here and no one protected me. I despise people who do this to young children. There's no excuse for predators to say it was done to me. That's why they are like the way they are. It happened to me, and I couldn't even take my children baths as a single parent of 3 boys. I could and would never put any child through what I've been through. 2 years ago, a suicide attempt. I have trust issues and it affects my life, school, and mental state. Feel sorry for that person. And I'll read you one more. Calling it rape is diminishing the trauma of violent rape. This boy enjoyed his time with her. This shouldn't be a different classification. Underage sexual contact, but not rape. I don't think it diminishes violent rape. I think rape is rape. Just my opinion. Because something that affects you 20 years from now may not affect you today. Keep that in mind. So that's some of the comments from the public out there. People's perception of these things. I'd love to know what your perception is of this. But there you go. Another case of bad teachers, and we're not letting up. I'm on a mission with this thing. We are going to raise awareness for this issue. Look, my goal, what I would like to see happen is all 50 states have consistent laws when it comes to this sort of thing. And together, that's how we make a difference. That's why it's so important that you share bad teachers, especially this podcast, especially comment on this podcast, especially rate this podcast, especially because the more you interact with it, the more people are going to see it. It's just that simple. It's so important. Thank you so much for listening. Check out the Patreon. We keep it active. We keep it on fire in there. I love going back and forth with all my celebrities that are on the Exposed Patreon page. That's at patreon.com/exposed podcast files. Make sure you listen tomorrow. We've got another Murdaugh coming your way. You're going to love this one. So stay tuned for that. And until next time, for Exposed, Scandalous Files of the Elite, I'm your host, Jim Chapman. Much love.